I'm so excited to chat with you because you have the movie based on the incredible book you've written here coming out shortly. It's Love in Taipei. How excited, what were your thoughts, I should say, when were you approached about making your book into a movie? And what was your initial reaction, I should say?
So I've been in this business a long time. I wrote for 10 years before I broke out with Loveboat Taipei, and I had to bury 4 novels. So one of those novels, I think it was my third novel, I signed with a big Hollywood agency, and people were talking about making that one into a movie. So I kind of had the bug at that point. People said my writing was cinematic. And so then when I wrote, those books ended up, the next 2 books came close at a major publishing house, but we couldn't get through marketing at the time, which was before Crazy Rich Asians. And Hamilton opened the door for more diverse stories, finding like general audiences. But with Loveboat Taipei, I definitely, once I started writing, people were like, wow, we can really see this as a movie. So I think that was always the hope from the beginning. And when I had a lot of, I went out to agents widely, and I had a bunch of agents like pitching. And then we went out to the editors, the publishing houses, and we had an auction where HarperCollins won. They were the top bidder, but they also had the biggest vision. And again, film was always a part of that conversation. So as soon as the book deal was announced, the scouts started calling my agents, and then I started speaking with producers shortly after that. So it has been, even then, even with those initial conversations, my film manager said that we couldn't celebrate until we were in the car driving to the premiere, because it is just so hard
Sure.
all the way to the screen. So I am happy to say that last night I was in the car driving to the premiere in Los Angeles. We did it.
My goodness. And there's a number of incredible actors in this. Ross Butler, Nico Horaga, Ashley Liao. How involved were you in the casting, or did you trust the vision that the director and the casting directors had for your series?
I knew from the start that we were going to have a lot of young talent, because it was a young cast and there were 30 different Asian and Asian American characters. So it was important for me that we open the cast widely, which we did. It was open to everyone, to the world. I didn't see every single audition tape that was submitted because there was just too many, but I did get like the first subset. But I did trust, the folks involved that had done more of these than me, to kind of know like what the calculation was. And of course, Ross Butler was always there from the beginning. We were like, we want Ross Butler to play Rick Wu. I'm so glad that he said yes.
Well, the whole feature turned out beautifully. Were you involved as well then in selecting the director for this, or were you excited when they told you, look, this is a person we have in mind for directing?
And this is a fun story. So Arvin and I actually met in 2019 through another mutual friend. So we ended up having coffee with my husband at the Starbucks down the street. And I remember at the time Arvin told me that it's important to have multiple projects because you never know which one's going to go forward or not. So when Arvin agreed to do the project, I thought to myself, like, okay, this one's going to happen. And so I said that to him last night at the premiere. I'm like, you said we needed a bunch of projects, and I'm so glad that this one got all the way to the end.
It's an incredible version of the wonderful best-selling book you've written. How involved were you then with Charlie O and Mackenzie Dorr when it came to adapting this for a movie?
So I did speak with Charlie quite a bit throughout the writing process, but part of it too is just like these are other creative people that are bringing their talents to the project, and I think I was trying to figure out what is the balance. You kind of let them go, right? You let them do what they're doing, and of course Ace was the one supervising for the most part, but Charlie and I would talk through the characters and their arcs, and I commented on draft after draft. I was less involved with Mackenzie. I think she came in a bit later, but I think that script, that provides the blueprint, people say that that's one version of the film. And then when you're actually filming on set, taking every scene 8 to 10 times, that's another version of the film. And then the final version of the film is created when you do the post-production edits. And I did see that. I did see the story iterating over time and evolving into what you now see on the screen.
I think the cinematography turned out wonderfully for the film as well. What were your thoughts when you were watching it on the big screen at the premiere?
Well, I'd seen it so many times on the small screen, throughout and also during the filming of it. I was on set the whole time as the one of the producers, actually the producer on set. Um, and seeing it on the big screen, I think the big difference for me was having the audience there and reacting, because until that point it was just me and the people making the movie, and we know it so intimately. So it's different to hear like the response. And so I loved when people laughed about certain lines that, we thought they were funny, we forgot they were funny because it's been so long, and then to have a fresh audience respond is just really rewarding.
When you were watching it back, were there specific scenes that you were like, wow, that turned out even more beautiful than I had initially thought when I was writing it, and even in my head, imagining how it eventually maybe even would come on screen?
I love the dance scenes. Like that was from the beginning something that I was really excited to see. And kind of like a fun fact, we filmed the entire dance sequence as a full blown sequence. It was from start to finish. It was set to the music of Elefante, who's that song that we danced to for that one ended up being the song in the cab when Chelsea starts dancing and she's like, "Yay, Taipei!" Um, but that it ended up getting cut together in a different way, and I think it's fascinating to see how you like tie that in. Like you know, you don't have to have a perfect dance on the ground on set. You just need the right clips to enter, like to go into the final film. And so I think that process of translating what we saw in that medium of the square or the rectangle was really fascinating.
The film is beautiful and it comes out here shortly. How are you going to celebrate when more people get a chance to sit and see the incredible work that you've done on our screens?
Well, we're going to have a Q&A on August 16th, so people can find it on my social media and my website. But I think that'll be a really fun opportunity to connect in person. And I'd love to hear what people think about the film. I'm dying to hear what people think. And especially, readers who will find like the movie ends, like I think of the movie as like a very small segment of the entire story arc that goes from book 1 all the way to the end of book 3. Even the movie itself ends in an earlier place than the book ends. So I am just dying to talk to like my readers about it and hear what they have to say.
What is it about Taipei that makes it such a magical, romantic city itself?
I love that question. There's something about being in this Asian country that's also a democracy, that's also had this whole history is still preserved. There are buildings, like ancient buildings in Taipei, that are no longer in other parts of Asia because of wars. And Taipei did not go through that same type of turmoil. So there's so much that's preserved there. And then, as they say in the movie, as Rick says, actually, there's also so many cultures that have come through Taipei, like the Dutch and the Japanese. And so you can see all those cultures reflected in the architecture and the food and the culture, and even like the fact that Xavier Ye's, some of his grandmothers, they speak Japanese and they have Japanese last names, right? So all of that, I think, just makes for a really interesting intersection of people and ethnicities and cultures, and somehow it all works together. And then it's also a very modern Asian city, which I think for me was some of the magic when I went there as a younger person, like just seeing like this fabulous new architecture that was both Asian and modern. I think was just incredible.
As I said, I feel like the cinematographer did the city justice and made it so beautiful in the film. But let's ask, what's next for you? Have you been busy working on more books, or are you taking a breath right now just because you have this wonderful book made into a movie at last?
Oh, well, thanks for the question. So the second book, Loveboat Reunion, is in the world. The third novel is just wrapped up. The cover's been revealed, called Loveboat Forever, and that drops November 7th. It follows Pearl Wong, who's Ever's younger sister. It takes place 6 years later, so we get to find out what happens to all the characters from the first book in like kind of a final resolution. And I have more books coming. They haven't been announced yet, but they are coming soon. And I also have other film and TV projects that are in the works. So I'm excited to share more when I can.